Let's see if YouTube gets working. Hello out there. All right, I think we'll get started in just a moment. If you're, let's see, if you're seeing this, post a comment. Let me know where you're from. Again, it always takes YouTube a little while to fire up over here, but we should be okay. All right. And let's see if we're live. I think we are. We are. All right, great. Well, I am Drew Badger, the founder of EnglishAnyone.com and the English Fluency Guide. Welcome to another live video here on YouTube. Today we're going to talk about fluency as usual. I wanted to teach you some useful vocabulary, but also to prove a point, and that is that we really become fluent as we understand vocabulary better, not as we try to learn more words. All right, so knowing a lot of words is certainly useful if you can use them fluently, but if you can't use them fluently, it doesn't really help you very much if you're trying to speak. So let's erase the board. We'll get started. So hopefully this won't be too long of a video actually, because I don't want to keep you too long. This is actually a pretty simple idea, but hopefully this makes sense. This is also for new people who are joining the channel, so we get new people joining us all the time, and I want to make sure people understand how we help people get fluent. Verdun says, what time out there? If you're talking about Japan, it is, let's see, what time is it? 9:42 a.m. in Japan. All right. So this video came because I got a question from a student. So usually, and I will probably get some examples of this in this chat here as I usually get, but a student had asked me about a word, gritty. So they said, well, I heard this word, can you tell me what it means? And this is a story, you know, this happens to any of us when we're trying to learn a language and we hear something and we want to know what it means. But hopefully this little explanation should make it a bit more clear how you learn new words, and that the goal is really to get fluent in them rather than just kind of understanding them to a small or a low degree. So a student heard a word like gritty, and the first thing I asked them is, you know, where did you hear that? What was the particular situation where you heard this word? And they were explaining they heard it in a movie, and so this often happens. You hear some vocabulary in a movie or TV show or something, and oh, that's maybe a new word for some people, or you don't quite understand a particular usage of the word. So before I teach this or explain what it means, help you understand it like a native, often the tricky thing with vocabulary is that even if you know a word or you've heard a word like this before, there are kind of levels of vocabulary and vocabulary use. So what do I mean by this? I mean, like, I'm going to put this kind of at like level 1, level 2, level 3, and level 1 is usually like the physical use of a word. All right. So as an example, not gritty. Let's say I'm talking about, I don't know, something physical like sharp. So I have a knife, and I learn a word like sharp, and this is just the opposite of something like dull. So we hear a word, you know, like a young child would see an example like this. They get to see a knife. Here's a knife right here, and look at that little point here. Oh, that point is sharp. So this is a sharp knife, and in contrast, we might show a child, here's like kind of a child's dull, maybe play knife like this. It's rounded. So this is a sharp knife up here, and this is a dull knife over here. So the dull knife, maybe it's just not very sharp, or we would actually have something like this we call this maybe a blunt. So this is another word, B-L-U-N-T. So blunt means we have kind of a rounded edge to it. You're not supposed to make this very sharp. It's for kids so they can enjoy, you know, playing with cooking or something like that. So typically a dull knife is a sharp knife that gets weaker over time. All right, so we cut many things, and slowly the edge gets a little bit rounded, a little bit weaker, and so we call that a dull knife. So this is level one, where we're getting usually some kind of figurative or excuse me, a literal or a physical understanding of a word. It's easy to understand simply by seeing it or touching it or experiencing it. And I don't need any translations or definitions or anything really. I can just show you what this is. I can have you touch a sharp knife and have you touch a dull knife, and you can experience the difference. So this is like what I call a fluency trigger, where you actually understand something just by experiencing it. So this is how you can understand it like a native, so you use it fluently. All right, so this is our level one vocabulary. Level two is where we start using something maybe in a bit more figurative or interesting way, like we talk about a person having a sharp mind. All right, so someone who has a sharp mind or someone who has sharp eyes, it's a little bit tricky because it's not really the same thing, but we're taking this same kind of word and using it in a kind of connected way. And when you say someone has a sharp mind, it means they're smart. All right, so someone is able to solve problems quickly. Oh, that's a sharp person. You can just talk about, oh, that person is very sharp, or that's a sharp child when you're talking about mentally how they are. So again, we go from a level one use to a level two use over here, and the same thing with sharp eyes. Like if I'm good at seeing things, you can say I have sharp eyes. Now, interestingly, we don't really talk about having dull eyes, but we do talk about having a dull mind. A dull mind. Isn't that interesting? So you can have a sharp mind or a dull mind, like, oh, that guy is kind of dull, like, not really thinking too much or not too smart, so a dull person. Or you could have a dull conversation where something is a little bit boring. But you see how these different words start to connect with each other, and it's a lot easier to understand it if you start from the bottom and go up, rather than something like up at the top and then try to understand what that means, because you're kind of starting with something up here where you hear a word like gritty, and maybe you don't understand the origin of the word or what that really means or what the context for that is. And so this is one of the reasons why learning vocabulary can be very tricky, especially if you're trying to watch movies and TV shows or the news or whatever, and you just hear something like this. So often regular conversational speech will use a lot of this like third level stuff, which is maybe even higher than this. So it could be movie quotes or using it in just a reference that maybe non-natives would probably not know. So we take something, again, I'll explain gritty in just a moment, but hopefully this makes sense, where when children are learning vocabulary, they typically build a foundation of understanding like this. And this is how fluency develops. So it's much more difficult to go like from your language directly to something like this in English, rather than to start with something and then actually build up your understanding in this way. So build up, all right? Just like we're building a building, this is a really useful phrasal verb, to build up. All right, so when people ask me questions like, hey, I heard a word like gritty, typically I will ask, well, where did you hear that, or what was the context? Because the meanings of words can change depending on the context. So I could have something that's gritty and like it could mean something different depending on the situation. And so let's understand the word the same way I would teach it to my own kids. So we begin with just the basic thing like grit. Grit. Now, grit, when we're talking about grit, if you don't know what this means already, another simple way, just like we're contrasting or comparing sharp versus dull or sharp versus blunt, we can look at the grit on something like sandpaper. So sandpaper it's literally paper that's got kind of sand or, grit basically glued on there, kind of stuck on there, so that when you polish something, you rub the sandpaper, you can smooth something else. All right, so maybe you are making something out of wood, and if you look very closely, you can see maybe you're trying to make something very smooth. You have like a pole or a railing or something that you made out of wood, and you want to take this rough edge and make it smooth. And that's why we take some sandpaper and rub that on there to try to polish it down, okay? So sandpaper looks like this. It's just some kind of paper, and it will have different kinds or different, you can say like how fine the grit is or how gritty the paper is. So there's different levels of that. You could have fine, which is like very, very tiny pieces of grit where you would use something for like polishing metal or something. Or you could have even a thicker grit where you're really trying to shave something off that's maybe some rough wood or something like that. But there are different kinds of grades of this. So you might have some coarse. So a coarse level of grit where you have like a kind of thicker, larger pieces of stuff on there, and then for fine it's like tinier pieces of stuff. But that's what grit is. So grit is basically these tiny little pieces, like you might go walking on the beach and you have your shoes on and then you find, oh, I've got some grit in my shoe. All right, so as you're walking on the beach, a little bit of sand or tiny rocks or something like that gets inside your shoe, and that is grit. So I've got some grit in my shoe. There's actually kind of food called grits. So it's a little bit different than just sand. It could be dirt. It could be kind of tiny rocks, lots of little things like that. So you might have some grit, even like I got a little bit of, feels like some grit on my teeth or something like that. So there is a kind of food called grits also, which kind of looks like that. You should just Google a picture of the food grits and you will see what it looks like, but it's kind of similar to this, like lots of little things like this, grits. So when we talk about something having grits, maybe we have, again, like the sand example, I'm walking on the beach, or maybe something is a little bit rough. Maybe you use a special kind of soap, and that soap might be for scrubbing your skin. So we might have like a scrub. So a scrub, this is like to scrub something, so it's a verb, to scrub something, but it's also a noun. So if we talk about a facial scrub, maybe you use something special to wash your face, and that scrub has a little bit of grit in it. So it's got a little bit of sand, or it could be, it's usually not sand, it's often those kinds of things they take like old shells from peanuts or something like that, or some kind of harder shell, and they crush those up to make them very fine, and then they use that. So if you're washing your face, usually some kind of scrub like that has some grit in it. All right. So this is a level 1 understanding of the word grit. So if even a child is walking, oh, I feel some grit in my shoe, like there's some tiny rocks or sand or something like that. But we want to move up so we can get to this understanding of gritty over here, again, depending on where we heard that. So another like kind of higher level, level 2, might be taking this idea and applying it in a more figurative way. So I think about like, what might a gritty person be? So a gritty person, or someone with grit, you could say both of those things. So maybe a gritty, so a gritty person, or you can say like a person has grit. So if you think about, now avarice is a different word, but gritty, when I think like you might be confusing this with greedy, which sounds similar. All right, so notice this is a T here, but I have the more flap D, gritty. So a British English pronunciation of this would be more like gritty. They actually say the T sound. But American English, we say gritty. All right, so it sounds more like a T. But this word here, this is greedy. So this is the short vowel I, gritty. So gritty, and this is the long E, greedy. If you'd like to know more about being able to hear these differences between sounds, you should get Frederick. You can click on the link in the description below this video for more about that. But it will teach you to distinguish these sounds so you hear them correctly and use them correctly as well. All right, that's a good question though. So greedy is a little bit different, actually quite different from gritty, but they do sound a little bit similar. All right, so if we go here, we're talking about a gritty person. A gritty person is a little bit rough, in the same way that kind of physical sandpaper is a little bit rough, because you need to be rough if you're going to maybe have some experiences which are a little bit difficult or trying, or there's a challenge. You need to keep working at something the same way that sandpaper continues to polish something. Okay? So you see the connection here. A gritty person or someone has grit. We talk about, that person having grit. If maybe, they do a really good a job at something, they are persevering, they are working hard, even though there are challenges, they don't quit, that person has grit, all right? So instead of a smooth, soft kind of person, like if you compare tissue paper with sandpaper, it's two different things. So sandpaper is going to be stronger, it will last longer, it can polish things, it will go up against maybe some kind of trouble, and then that will be a different thing than maybe tissue paper, which rips very easily, all right? So a gritty person or someone who has grit, like you might talk about a leader who has grit, or an athlete who has a lot of grit, or a person who's very gritty, like they're able to persevere because they really try very hard and they don't quit. All right. But hopefully you see this connection, and it's much easier to make this connection if we go from bottom up like this, rather than just hearing some random vocabulary and you think, well, I don't quite understand what that means, but this is how we go back and understand that. So if you're prepared for vocabulary in this way before you hear it, then you feel, wow, I actually understand what people are talking about in real conversations, and I feel much more confident about speaking. Okay, so this is how you should be learning vocabulary and understanding it. So we can continue to go up when we hear things like gritty. It depends on the movie or maybe the TV show, but gritty in the same way is usually talking about things are rough or true. It's describing real life, which isn't always beautiful or happy or sunshine. There could be problems or things that might be a little bit difficult. There's some rough parts about life. It's gritty. So when you hear about usually a gritty movie, it's usually talking about showing like a gritty crime drama, or talking about maybe something that's a bit more like kind of showing the real life or the way people really live, rather than a fiction of how maybe a kind of movie might maybe look. So we have like a kind of a TV show for kids that's usually maybe colorful, or we have some easy lessons, we have some good characters and some bad characters. But when you have more adult shows, usually there are some characters who are kind of gritty, or the scene, the whole story could be quite gritty, where they talk about the truth about maybe police officers have to do something evil, or the bad guy does something good or something like that. But usually it's talking about more kind of the reality of something, which is like sandpaper. So it's not always smooth. There's some kind of grit in there. So we're talking about the way real life is, or real examples, something that's, again, different from nice and smooth and easy. All right. So when people ask me what something means, there are two ways of teaching this. The first one is just say, it just means this. And I give a definition, or I give a translation, and that's it. But then if I do that, usually the person, maybe they get the answer very quickly, but they don't really understand it very well, and they can't use it fluently, and they probably forget what they learned. And this is why I wanted to just give you an example with one word about how to use one thing fluently. So if you can use one word fluently by understanding it really well, that will prove to you that you can do this with anything. So you really could learn any word you want or any phrase you want, same kind of idea. But it's much easier to go from bottom up, where we start with the simple and go to the more complex, rather than starting with the top and trying to go back down. All right? So hopefully this makes sense. This is the kind of thing we do in Fluent for Life, but you can also do it by yourself, just getting very simple examples of things. Like if you're looking on ChatGPT, or I don't know, like Google or YouTube or whatever, for simple examples of things. But again, asking ChatGPT, like what does grit mean? Just on a very basic level. But then you could ask, like, well, what are some more figurative or difficult or more kind of interesting uses that a native might use. So how might a native use the word gritty rather than like a non-native or a physical use of it? So I can talk about a road being kind of gritty or something physical like that, but really when I'm talking about this, typically if you hear this in a movie, like a gritty crime movie, then we're talking about something that's trying to show real life and the real situation rather than just kind of like a Hollywood or a kind of a nice or clean version of how something would look. Gritty, all right? I have some more examples in the description below this video, so if you'd like to learn more about that, even more applications, the more important point is understanding how vocabulary works and how new meanings are created from a foundation of things. But words typically work in this way. And when we learn something new, try to spend a little bit of time understanding the foundation, and you understand the foundation when you feel confident about saying something. So if you learn something new and you just get a definition or a translation, but you don't really feel very confident, you might maybe recognize it when you hear it in conversations or in movies, but if you want to use it fluently, that's why the point of this video is to understand something and use it fluently. All right. So we don't get fluent simply by repeating a word. We get fluent by really understanding the word well. Hopefully that makes sense. All right, let me go back and check comments. If you have any questions about this or something else, let me know. But I wanted to just, again, make a quick video explaining something very simple like this and helping you understand this, because if you can understand even something simple, just trying to understand a simple word like this, you really can develop a broad vocabulary and get very fluent in that vocabulary very quickly. And you notice, even if we just focus on one thing, we've got other words and other topics and things, and you can hear me explaining grammar points, but not really, it's kind of using grammar, but I'm not really focusing on a particular grammar point. It's really just helping you understand the word. But we actually combine this with other words like sharp and dull and sandpaper and other things like that. All right, so if you pay attention, even just focusing on one four-letter word like grit, you can actually learn a lot and become a much more confident speaker all by yourself. All right, let's take a look and see here. So George says hello. All right, Nafal says hello from Morocco. Danielle says hello from Brazil. Always happy to see you sharing your knowledge, Drew. Thanks a lot. It's my pleasure. Wellington says hello from also from Brazil. Judy says hello. Ragad says hello, teacher from Libya. Nice to see you there. Look at that. We got people represented all over the place. And Talisman. You got that hard to read font over there. Hi, Drew. Nice to see you live again. Ronan said, I can tell you're very smart. You can? How do you know that? Good evening, teacher, says Jerema. So Nat says, sir, I'm spending most of my time in listening, almost 3 to 4 hours daily, but I'm still not able to speak fluently. How it will take more time. Do you mean how much more time will it take? I can think better in English, but not speak way I think. I see. Good morning from Pakistan. The simple answer to your question is it depends on what you're listening to. Let me erase some of this. I think people hopefully have this understanding pretty well. So I mentioned at the beginning of this video, the reason I'm talking about this is because a student asked me about the word gritty, and I wanted to show kind of the deeper way of understanding this. I know it might seem slower because I'm spending more time on the word, but the focus is the key. That's the thing that actually gets you fluent, because the whole point is to understand the vocabulary really well so you eliminate any doubt, okay? So the fastest way to become a fluent speaker is to eliminate or to destroy or to get rid of the doubt that stops you from speaking. It's the doubt that stops you from speaking. All right, so let's take a look at this example. Now I'm going to guess, you can correct me if I'm wrong. This is actually a great expression. I'll put this up here for everyone. Correct me if I'm wrong. So correct me if I'm wrong. This is a great way to start an explanation, like if you're asking for clarification or you're trying to explain something, but you want to make sure you are properly understanding something so that I understand. So what was your name again? Make sure I got that right. Nat Slowed, if I'm pronouncing that correctly. Yes, but hopefully I am. If I'm not, correct me if I'm wrong. But again, when we're starting something like an explanation like this, correct me if I'm wrong. So correct me if I'm wrong. But most people who are they're spending a lot of time listening, it's often just some random content about whatever. So let's say I spend 3 hours a day listening to YouTube videos about learning English. So I watch one video, here's like 10 phrases, and here's another video about confidence. Here's another video about, I don't know, just some random video about like a TV show or something. And so each one of these things, you can probably find a connection between these, but usually people are just watching random content. And so you will, like if you look at YouTube, it's designed to give you a bunch of maybe some things you're interested in, but you will see little videos on the right side. Ooh, that video looks interesting. I will watch this video over here. All right, so you're like talking about this thing, that thing, so you're watching this video and then you go to the next one and the next one, and often there's no plan for that. And so if you watch a bunch of random things, you're not really giving your brain enough review to really understand something, okay? So this is the example of even spending, like 3-4 hours a day just watching random content. All right. So it could be for natives, it could be for people learning English, but this is what I recommend instead. So this is what I actually do for learning Japanese. So I think maybe I'll make a video about this, but just giving you this little bit here about trying to find content to learn with. So if I will be trying to make a connection between a phrase or a grammar point or something like that. So whatever like the particular topic is, it could be, if I'm trying to focus on something very specific, like a grammar point or a phrase, it's pretty easy to get that. And then I want to connect that with some interest. So I'm interested in whatever that topic is. So typically you can find some content, even if you don't know exactly what words will be used in the content. The point is really to keep your ears open for that particular thing. So as an example, I want to learn about, I don't know, like a present continuous. So I'm just talking about something like going or doing or something like that. But I also like flowers. What I would do is I might, if I really don't understand this point at all, I might watch a video about going, but I would spend more time watching videos about making flowers, and I will probably find some content that will talk about this. So right now I'm watering the flowers, or right now I'm reading or seeding the ground, or right now I'm doing something, and you will hear, if you are paying attention for it, that particular phrase or vocabulary or the grammar point, whatever you're listening for. So of course there will also be other things. So maybe two people could even watch the same content and get different vocabulary from it. So they're paying attention for different things. So if I'm walking with my wife, like let's say we are taking a walk somewhere, maybe she is interested in rocks. So she keeps her head looking down and she notices a lot of rocks on the ground. But I don't really care about rocks. I like birds. And so I'm looking up in the trees and I notice a lot of birds up there. And after our walk, she says, "Oh, I saw all these beautiful rocks. Did you see those?" And I said, "Oh, no. I didn't notice those." And I say, "Oh, well, I was looking at these birds in the trees. Did you see those beautiful birds?" And she says, "Oh, I wasn't paying attention for that." All right, so the birds and the rocks are still there, just like in a topic about whatever the particular vocabulary is there, but you don't have to focus on everything. You focus on the particular thing. You just want to like listen to some content and just pay attention to the thing you're interested in, all right? So whatever that is, it could be something specific like a grammar point or whatever, or you could also be just, don't worry about the specific topic. The topic itself is like the topic and the interest are the same thing. So you're just interested in learning more about how to talk about a particular thing in general. So I want to know how to raise chickens, or I want to know how to draw a picture, or I want to know, the life of a particular person. Like I'm interested in biographies or something like that. So I can watch content specifically about that, but it's the focus that really helps me understand something so I can use it fluently. Okay, so remember, we have these different levels of understanding. If you just get exposed to vocabulary, maybe you might understand it or hear it. Oh, like I think I've heard that word before. Or you get to the awareness level where you really feel more confident that you understand what something is and you recognize it easily. But you won't get to awareness from awareness, to ownership, where you can actually use something fluently if you don't get enough examples to remove any of the doubt that stops you from speaking. All right. So at each level where we're trying to understand something better, that's how we actually can understand things, by eliminating the doubt at that level. So at the lowest level, just are you hearing a word correctly or not? So we saw some examples of that in this video where we're talking about the word gritty. And people are saying, well, does he mean greedy? All right. So that means there's doubt about actually hearing what I'm saying. Okay, so it's good for me then to go back and compare these two things. So we have gritty, or greedy, which are two different sounds when you hear them next to each other. Okay, this is why we built Frederick to actually let you compare two sounds together like that. You can actually compare many different sounds, but that's how you understand and you develop really good hearing, because you're hearing the differences between sounds rather than just listening to individual words by themselves. Okay. So again, this is the basic idea where if you're trying to learn something, I could spend 20 minutes a day. I could spend more time, but even if I spend maybe 10 minutes or 15 minutes, 20 minutes just on focusing on the particular thing I'm interested in. Okay, so whatever that is, if I want to use a word more fluently, I want to really understand different people saying it, this is what I should be doing. So this is what I call naturally varied review. Again, this is what we do in Fluent for Life. So if you really want to understand like the way we built Fluent for Life, this is what I'm recommending you do if you learn by yourself with YouTube or whatever. All right, but the point is to focus, whatever you're interested in. So I would usually begin with whatever you're interested in, or if you have a particular doubt about something. So for me, learning Japanese, if I hear a grammar point or some vocabulary I don't quite understand what it means, then I should focus more on that. I think, I've heard that. I've heard people use that a few times. I should maybe get more examples or hear more situations or something like that. But if I focus on that, I will become fluent in that thing very quickly. And as I get fluent in more words and phrases, I become fluent in the language. All right? So we don't become fluent in the language by learning a bunch of random things to a shallow level. We understand a few things deeply, and that really actually helps us understand and communicate about many things really actually quite quickly. All right? Hopefully that makes sense. That was kind of a long explanation, but I know we get new people all the time asking about this, but it's a big problem. Probably, I would say, really the biggest problem for people trying to learn languages. So they get like a very shallow understanding of many words, and then they can't understand like kind of these higher level uses that people have of those words, and they also can't use them fluently. So I would recommend people do that. All right, let's see. Good morning from, okay, I got that one already. Sand. So Hack Wizards again. Kenneth, hi Drew. How is everything in Japan? Tell me about the weather. It's raining or not? Yes, it's raining over here. Fabio says a vegetal good. You mean like a gourd? Is that what you mean? Let's see. Now, okay, I answered that question already. Tam says, how about the word grifter? Grifter. So again, this is one of those things, it sounds similar, but completely different meaning. Gritty and grifter. Grift usually means you're trying to trick people or to get people to, you want to take their money or something like that. That's a grifter. So someone, like you will hear about this in popular culture now. Like if, let's say there's a natural disaster and everybody sees that, and then I open a GoFundMe account and say, hey, please donate money to this disaster, and I just collect the money and I keep it. I'm grifting right there. So I'm using something, or I'm trying to trick people in some way to get money from them, to grift. All right. So grift, and a person who is doing this is known as a grifter. A grifter. All right, so greed, yes, I answered that already. Gloria says hello. Tam says, I need to explain more about the word grifter. Hopefully that makes sense. Cam, nice to see you there. Bean, how to find out phrases for understanding new word. Well, I would focus on the particular vocabulary of it, and this is where ChatGPT is actually very useful, where it can help you understand these different levels of vocabulary. So if you don't have a teacher like me, like we have in Fluent for Life, to actually help you understand things, you can get explanations. It's just more difficult to try to get them by yourself, but it is possible to do. But again, the point is to get lots of examples and pay attention for the connections between things. So as you hear some new words, we talked about the word, grit, but you hear how we have different uses of other vocabulary like sharpness and dullness, because I'm using one thing to explain something else. And so typically your journey to understand particular words will lead you to other words as well. Hopefully I answered that correctly. Let me take a look at that again, make sure I'm explaining that properly. Let's see. So how to find out phrases for understanding new words. Yeah, so that's how I would do that. So if your question is, again, correct me if I'm wrong, but if your question is asking how do we find out phrases for understanding new words, it's really like how do we understand new vocabulary. That's how you would do it though. All right. So this video is basically talking about that, explaining that if you want to understand something better, you should try to get like the very foundation, like what is the origin of something or what is the physical use of that word. And typically that will help you understand something. Because often, again, you might hear something in a TV show or a movie or whatever, and it's a higher level use of a word where it's not really connected or not logically in your mind, so it's more difficult to understand something like that. So if we talk about a gritty scene in a movie, it's not really clear what that means. Like what exactly is that referring to? But if you understand from the foundation, like a native does, if you're doing that because you understand like a native, you will be able to use it more like a native. All right, Voss says, kisses for your daughters. Well, thank you very much. Happy to see you from Ethiopia. Cyril says hi, and Sarita says hello from Bolivia. And from Lu from China, Sarita says, thanks, I'm each time learning more. Glad to hear it. So yes, the point, if you watch enough of my videos, even if you watch just a few of them, you should get a sense for how I'm speaking. And if you're paying attention for the different ways I speak, not only the specific grammar we're focusing on or the particular phrases or whatever, but actually the way I weave all of this together. So if you're paying attention for that, you will become a more confident speaker. All right. And Ermaya, do you have Discord community server to improve our speaking in English? Well, you don't need a Discord server to do that. And you can probably find lots of Discord servers now if that's what you're interested in. But this is kind of the funny thing about being a teacher, where the things that most people want are not actually what they need to get fluent. So they want fluency, but they're doing these other things over here that aren't really helping them. So they think, because they've been told by so many people, you have to speak to become fluent, when the reality is you won't speak if you don't understand the vocabulary first. So it's actually quite easy to find people to speak with. The more difficult thing is having the confidence when you have those opportunities. All right. So lots of people, like I could join a club, or I could find some people online or in person to speak with. But if I don't feel confident about speaking, I'm just going to sit and listen to them talking anyway. And if I'm doing that, I can do that by myself. So I don't need to, either I'm feeling confident and I will speak with people, or I'm not feeling confident and I will not speak. All right. So you don't need a Discord server. You don't need to spend a lot of time talking with other people. You just need to understand vocabulary better. All right. So spend more time, excuse me, if you spend more time paying attention to how the language works and you focus on what you're interested in, you will get fluent in that thing, and that will help you understand more. Saw you in Chinese social media. I don't know if that's referring to me. You saw me in Chinese social media or something else? Well, it says, I love the video that you talk about mythological creatures. Oh, you like that video? Yeah, people still watch that video. That was a couple of years ago. That was a book I found after I had been searching for that book for years. But I think I talked about that. Maybe I will make some more videos about explaining things at different levels. So I did kind of a series before about talking about simple things or things that could be simple, but you can actually explain them at different levels. So even talking about something very simple like a marker, I could talk about the, like the color of it, or how, I don't know, where I bought the marker or something, but I could take it to a much higher level where I talk about, I don't know, where I found something and the story behind markers in general or something like that. So depending on my ability to speak, I could take that and talk about it in many different ways. Let's see, and Genothra, is that one? I don't know if that's a name. J know the best. How are you? I'm doing all right. It says, you are an American, right? A Yankee. Yes, that's correct. I'm from the United States. Prasanna says, hi, Drew. Very good morning. I am watching your lesson. It's very good. Sir, I am from Sri Lanka. Welcome. Gabriel says, hello from Mexico. I understand you perfectly, but there are people who I don't understand a word. For example, Demi Moore, Sylvester Stallone. Yes, so this is what I just explained about vocabulary. I could explain the exact same thing about ways of speaking. So I'm speaking to you at like first level, not textbook English, but I'm really making my language clear and understandable on purpose, okay? So I know I'm speaking to people who might not understand regular native speakers, especially if they're speaking quickly or they're using these higher level forms of vocabulary or they just don't speak very clearly. So again, like the reason you could understand me but not those people is because we're speaking a different kind of English, all right? It's the same vocabulary, kind of, it's the same speed, kind of, but it's not really at the same time. Like it's like a grade, like we go from kind of easy to difficult, but you can feel like this is easy and this is kind of medium and this is more difficult stuff over here. But what we do in something like Fluent for Life is we start you with this kind of English where I'm speaking to you here, and then you get to hear it from different speakers. And you get to see it in actual conversations, how natives would use it, all right? So you're either doing this with me or you're doing this with somebody else or you do it by yourself, but this is how you move from that level to understanding Demi Moore and Sylvester Stallone. So Sylvester Stallone also is like, he's like quite difficult, especially as he's gotten older, but that's kind of a joke among English speakers that he's not a very clear speaker, all right? And so that's part of understanding the culture of these kind of higher level, regular, everyday speech, whether it's just regular people or movie stars or celebrities or whatever. So you have to focus and get these kind of different levels of understanding rather than just trying to watch a bunch of different celebrities. It's going to be much more difficult to do that. All right. So if you understand me, but you don't understand them, it's much easier to go in simple steps rather than just try to jump directly from here to there. Okay. So if you can't find this anywhere else, like it's hard to get examples, this is what we do in Fluent for Life. All right. Make sure I'm moving along here. We have some good questions though. And Jacinto is back. 104 people watching this and only 34 likes. Let's go ahead and hit like for Drew for his great job teaching us today. Let's go team. Yes, glad to hear it. If you do enjoy the video, if you have learned something, if it has been helpful, let me know. If my videos are not helpful, let me know why. I'd love to know how I can help more people, and I'm always trying to improve. So I spend lots of time thinking about how to make the language easier to understand. And it can be difficult for me. I could make just a bunch of random vocabulary videos and maybe those would get more views, but they would not really get people fluent, which I care about that personally, and most of the people who follow me are actually here trying to speak. So that's why we make things for those people. All right, so Melly says, I'm from South Korea. Nice to see you there. Abdo says, hello, teacher. Thank you for your effort. You have a special way how you explain. Thanks again for your effort. Please, I wanted to ask you, is the stress in words make different with the same sound? Is the stress in words made, do you mean made different with the same sound? I don't know what you're referring to, if you mean like individual stress on individual sounds in words, or if you're talking about like accents or pronunciation. But typically, like, I could change the way I say a word and by changing my tone or changing the speed or something. So if I'm talking about someone, I say, oh, do you think she is coming to the party? So I'm just focusing on that, like stressing that particular word, because that's the purpose of that sentence. I want to know, like, is she coming rather than someone else, or is she not coming? Or is she coming to the party? So I'm emphasizing the word party. So I'm changing the meaning of the sentence, even though the words are still the same. So we can change a lot about changing the stress or the speed or other things like that. And this is, again, it's a skill you develop as you spend more time paying attention to the language. And Tom says, good morning, everyone. Ohayo gozaimasu. Kazu says, hi from Bangladesh. Let's see. Nihon kara kita hito wa imasu ka? Maybe some people. There might be some Nihonjin or some other people in Japan watching this. Tom, you live in Japan right now? I don't know where you live. Better Enjoyable says, hello, Drew. I can't thank you enough. Because of you, I've reached the point where I can speak almost without hesitation. Hello, Drew. Oh, okay, got that a quote there. Is that from you personally or somebody else? But welcome. If that's you, great. Fantastic. Whoever that is. Learning here is much better than using Discord. Yeah. So again, like, getting feedback on your English is fine, or asking questions or whatever. All of that is useful, but I'm typically trying to get the most improvement for the least amount of time. So I want to spend just a little bit of time learning and actually improve much faster, and I do that by focusing on things. So it seems like, if we compare two different people, one person is learning 100 new words a day and I'm learning only 10 new words a day, it might seem like the other person is learning faster. But I can guarantee I'm going to become a more confident speaker faster because I understand my vocabulary better. All right. And then I will actually be able to learn many more new words much faster, because the other person is like they actually are trying to balance something where they don't really feel very confident about what they're using. Hello from Greece, says Mariana. Nice to see you there. We got some fans in Greece. I'd like to go to Greece. Seems like a nice place. I like Greek food, actually. I have a lot of, we have a Greek town in Chicago. I used to love going there. Haven't been there in a while, though. MSMH says, thanks a lot, my teacher. This is me, Saeed. Nice to see you there. Voss again. You could read different books for us, teaching the difficult word. What you think? I suppose I could do that. I mean, you can find lots of that already. Just watch. There are lots of people reading books. I mean, maybe they don't explain the vocabulary, but if you're watching typically children's books, that could be some useful things. Often, like if you look at your like, you could read different books for us teaching the difficult word. Like, there are some basic mistakes in that, in what you said. I'm sure maybe you're just writing it quickly, but the typos or whatever. But if we want to become a more confident speaker and speak correctly, if that is your goal, I would be focusing much more on that. And there are lots of people who already, I could search YouTube right now and find people who are reading books to kids, or even reading more difficult stuff, just getting audiobooks of things. My teacher, do you need to watch your videos in some particular order, or do I need to watch your videos in some particular order? If you're in Fluent for Life, yes, but if you're in just watching videos here on YouTube, you'll notice a lot of the videos I make, they cover some of the same general topics, but I try to teach different vocabulary in each one, just so I can help people understand how they should be learning. So if they either want to continue doing that by themselves or they join me and let me kind of get them fluent automatically. But you don't have to watch them in any particular order. It's more focusing on the particular things you need. So we cover quite a few different things, but if you'd like to hear more about listening or pronunciation or whatever, you can search my channel for those things. Let's see. And Lewis says, Will Smith is also simple to understand. Oh, is not also simple to understand, I think. Yes, it depends on the speaker and what situation they're speaking in. And like if you watch people in a movie rather than an interview. Also, if you watch a movie actor in an interview in a different country, they will change the way they speak a little bit. So if you watch for like the Japanese audience, Tom Cruise or somebody comes to Japan and they do an interview, they try to speak a little bit, they might even throw in a Japanese word or something like that. But it depends on the audience. If it's for native speakers, usually they will speak faster or they will speak in a different way. Obrigado, says Valmasir and Hip, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, from Vietnam. Nasir, and what kind of exercise will you recommend to improve my speaking speed? I would just understand the language better. So understanding the language better is the thing that improves every skill. So if you learn a lot of words, but you don't really understand them very well, then you can't use them faster. All right, so if you want to be able to speak quickly, I could speak much faster than how I'm speaking now, but I don't, but I could because I know the language very well. So if I'm talking about something I don't know very well, then I'm not going to speak very quickly about it. All right, so the key is really to spend more time on something, but I'm not suggesting you do it in a boring way. Just keep it interesting by taking something you're interested in and connecting that with the English. All right, so it doesn't need to be boring. It should just be actual content you're interested in. I'm Korean, living in Malaysia. Thank you for your videos. Glad to hear it. Says Megimi. And again, Jacinto says, one of the ways I improved my English by watching cartoons and comedy sitcoms. Friends was a good show. Yeah, I know a lot of people watch that show. Yeah, it's interesting. Like Friends, I don't know if native speakers still talk about Friends. That show is, it's been off. Maybe it's still in reruns, I guess. I don't know. But usually now, I guess more things on Netflix or something like that. But Friends is pretty easy to understand. And there's lots of videos about understanding that show. The video is useful for me. Appreciate it. Glad to hear it. Yes, if you know other people we can help who would like to learn English the native way like this, send them our way. Luciano says, hello, Drew. Thank you for all the videos. Can you explain the difference between also and to and the context in which we can use both words? Well, it's better to get, this is a kind of question for ChatGPT. I would go there or go to Google because you can already find examples of that. I'm most useful for when you have a specific example of something you don't really understand. So let me know if you have a specific question about that. But if you're just talking about like also and to, it depends on particular situations, and rather than try to cover a bunch of those, you can that information is already just sitting there waiting for you. It might even be in other YouTube videos as well. Bain says, how are you? Tom again. Let's practice our English making question to teacher Drew and hitting the like button. Yes, you could do that. So you could say making a question for Teacher Drew, or you could just say asking a question to Teacher Drew. Everton says, what do you think about change the language of cell phone and other devices? Yeah, I think that's useful if it's kind of fun for you and depending on how you use that. For me, I don't do that in Japanese because there are a lot of written characters that I can't read, and it would be more difficult for me for some things like changing the settings or whatever. I just don't know some of the characters. So it depends if you're coming from French or Spanish or something that also uses similar alphabet, then you could probably do something like that and it would be useful for you. But I don't know. Those kinds of things, like they can be interesting, kind of changing your environment. I talk about that as like a way to be helpful, but you don't have to do those things. The more important thing that you have to do is actually focusing on the particular vocabulary and spending enough time that you eliminate doubt about it. So if I took two people and one of them was like, okay, I'm even going to live in a country and set my phone to that thing and whatever, like a couple of other things, and another person just got a lot of really understandable input, like that, the understandable input person would get fluent faster. Because the goal, again, is to understand the language really well so you feel confident about speaking, okay? So if your phone, it kind of reminds you of that, that's useful, but I don't know, it's not as useful as just getting a lot of good focused input about a thing until you clear up whatever doubt you have about that. So that's what I was doing with this example about the word grit today and gritty. And we could even cover more examples, and there are some more examples if you'd like to read some sentences in the description below this video. But again, the point is to focus on something rather than try to get a bunch of random vocabulary. But you can see, so people are naturally interested people are naturally interested in kind of getting a wide range of stuff, and they don't like reviewing information. But they also do like reviewing information that they're interested in. So it's a tricky thing where if you learn a new language in a way that is like how you enjoy, let me make this easier. Let's say I personally like a TV show. Like if I like the show Friends, for example, I will probably watch lots of episodes of Friends, and I don't need anyone to remind me of that. I don't need any motivation to watch the show. I just enjoy watching the show. And so if I can take something like that, but also connect it with the review I need for learning English, then I'm probably going to enjoy that more. But even watching like random episodes of Friends, like there will be some things that are similar and some things that are not about the vocabulary. So it really depends on what you're learning. But again, focus is the key, and I would do that. Make sure I'm not losing track over here. I'm getting more comments. Did I miss these up here? Wait a minute. Oh, I think I got this one already. Oh, okay, I did those already. Yeah, pardon me as I lose my place. It would be awesome, YouTube, if you could push a button and it just took me back to the comment where I was, so I don't have to keep scrolling back. But let's see. Okay, I think I answered that one. All right. Millie says, I really love the way you teach. It's so helpful for improving my English. Glad to hear it. Yes, and so if you feel more confident about speaking because you understand the language better, that means what I'm doing is working. So when people say it's helpful, like that, it should be what's happening. And as you feel more confident, you should be trying to speak more or trying to use the vocabulary more. I'm trying to give you aha moments where you understand something better, like, oh, that's what that means. Okay, now I feel more confident about using it. Raul says, how not to forget words that are used so often. Greetings from Brazil. Well, if you are using the vocabulary often, you probably shouldn't be forgetting it, but it depends on the vocabulary. Again, I would get more review of that just to make it more obvious for you. And see people in those situations. So watch those people do it. So the reason children learn their own language very well is because they see so many examples of adults doing that situation or whatever, that using those phrases or things like that. So every day, if I hear my mom on the phone, she says, hello, this is blah, 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 this is Judy, whatever, I hear the way she answers the phone, and then I'm going to start copying what she does. Oh, hello, this is Drew, may I ask who's speaking, or something like that. So it depends on what you're trying to learn, but the answer is typically focus on that thing. Don't make it boring for yourself. Get varied review. That's why what I call naturally varied review is so important, because we're not just watching the same video again and again. You can get more review from that, like if you watch something and then listen to it and try writing it down. That's how you're really trying to get all the value out of a particular video, because usually what happens is maybe you're watching this video right now, but you're also thinking, ooh, I'm a little bit hungry. What should I get for dinner tonight, or something like that? So you're not paying attention to me 100% of the time. Sometimes you're thinking about something else or whatever. Like, I got you right there. You're thinking about something else. All right. So that's why it's a good idea to review even the same piece of content a few times. But it's less interesting for your brain than trying to get like a bunch of different things. All right. So you want to combine this natural desire of your brain to learn new things, but you also learn more about the things you're interested in. So maybe if you like a particular sports team, then you know all the information and you want to get new news about that team. You really know that thing well. So that's the same kind of thing you're trying to apply to be learning English and getting fluent in English faster. Okay, I think I got those already. Alexander from Brazil, nice to see you there. And Rasico, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, correct me if I'm wrong. From Sri Lanka, Tom, again, good question, Raul. I think I answered that one, though. Friends is very popular in China. Every English learner knows it. Yes, I figured that might be. Diana says, what is the best advice to study for doing the exam at TOEFL? Greetings from Mexico. I'm not the best person to ask about particular tests. I focus on conversational fluency and speaking confidence. But if you're looking for tests, you can probably find lots of people on YouTube who do that kind of thing. So what I do is actually helpful for tests, but I'm probably not the best person to ask about like taking a particular test. How can I become fluent in a language? What are the key steps and strategies, says Tam? It's just finding information that is helping you understand the language like a native. That's basically the idea. So if you want to speak a language fluently, you have to remove the doubt that stops you from speaking. You will find some people who just have confidence and they just say things and they're not correct. But lots of people are worried about making mistakes, and so they would rather feel confident when they're speaking, and that's just like a normal thing. So if you can find more information about things that help you understand like a native, so this is what we do on our videos here or in Fluent for Life. We actually take you step by step through understanding the language really well, so you feel confident about speaking, but that's how you do it. So it's not like a lot of really complicated steps. I made a video years ago called Get Fluent with One Trick. And it's interesting to see that video was copied by a lot of people. I've seen it like Get Fluent in Japanese with one trick or whatever. But the basic idea of that video is that you just have to understand English like a native speaker. So instead of trying to learn the language like a native, you understand it, or excuse me, like you're learning through your native language, you understand it like a native English speaker. And so that means getting lots of examples, lots of naturally varied review, lots of input that help you understand the language. And that's what eliminates or destroys or ends or gets rid of the doubt that stops you from speaking. So you already want to speak. You already have things you want to say. You just don't know how to put it together in English. And those are the doubts right there. And as you remove those doubts, you feel more confident about speaking because you know how to speak correctly. And that's when you start speaking. So that's really just the one thing. You don't need like a lot of tips in order to do that. It's just focusing on understanding the language like a native rather than like a student. So you like what most people do, you should not do that. They understand a lot of English, but they still have trouble speaking because they don't really know the language very well. Hisako, nice to see you there from Aomori. Thank you for your the eye-opening explanation and help us easier to understand. Yes, you would say thank you for the eye-opening explanation. That helps us understand more easily. Or actually, there are different ways you could say that. But yes, I understand what you're trying to say. Let's see. Good to have more Japanese watchers over here. Better Enjoyable says, I've been studying English for almost a year and a half. I can understand over 80%, but struggle with speaking where I often make mistakes. What do you advise to help me speak more like a native? You have to learn like a native. So as I've been explaining in this video and all of the videos I make, the whole point is to, instead of learning like a student, you learn like a native. So I have many videos where I talk about this, like English, learning English as a second language and learning English as a first language. And so when you learn English as a first language, this means learning English all in English and trying to understand it the same way a native does, rather than trying to get explanations or translations that make communication more difficult. So it's faster to learn a bunch of words and just get some translations and make flashcards and try to remember that vocabulary, but that's not really going to help you speak, because how you learn is how you speak. So if you learn like a student, you will speak like a student. If you learn like a native, you will speak like a native. Okay? So you want to focus more on understanding the language like a native, and that's what we do in all these videos. And I know we get, like, not everybody is going to watch all of my videos here, so I like to re-explain these things each time I do videos. So it's good to get these questions. But you can see how common these problems are because they come up in every video. So lots of people have the same kinds of issues, and even though I'm explaining basically the same answer, I try to explain it in a slightly different way each time. What do you think about flashcards? Says it's hard to choose a name. Flashcards are useful after you already understand something well. So a perfect example for me learning kanji. So these are Japanese written characters. And if I begin, so the typical approach, like I'm talking about here, like learning English as a second language, I'm going to give the example for learning Japanese. So it would be like learning Japanese as a second language. So I take a character that I don't really understand. Let me just trying to think of something more difficult. Even like a simple character. If I just write this as a character and I try to read that, like the flashcard way to do this is just, okay, here's a card. And this is the character I'm trying to remember, and on the back of that card it tells me what it is. And I'm just like, okay, I'm trying to remember. Okay, I have to like look at the flashcard many times, and hopefully I remember it. So this is the typical way of learning something. So the flashcard becomes useful over time as hopefully I recall something, like, or if I write it enough times, I should be able to understand that. Or the faster way to understand something would be like understanding like Japanese as a first language, where I don't want to just start memorizing something. I really want to understand that thing. And so this character, for example, so we have like the character for person and the character for tree, and I know what these are, and so I can create a very simple story about like a person relaxing on a tree. And you can do this, like not all characters work this way physically, but you can create stories as an example for doing that. And so before you start reviewing a flashcard, you really want to understand the thing you're learning. And so it's the same lesson that I use for me learning Japanese that I'm also teaching for English. So I take the character, I really understand it first, and then I don't really need to review that character many times to understand it because I already remember what it is. All right. So the flashcard is useful for just a little bit of review, but I should be spending more time at the beginning really understanding something well. All right, so it's like you can think about like sharpening your knife or something like that, or you're going to sharpen your axe before you cut something. So I spend my time like really understanding something. That's the sharpening the axe part. And then when I go to review it, it's very quick. That's the chopping using the axe part. Okay. So a lot of people, they just get a word and they start chopping, but the axe is very dull. There's that word dull again. See how I bring back the vocabulary so I can give you that review. All right. So when we're hearing something like this, like if I learn some new vocabulary, the basic way most people do it is they just try to repeat the same thing. They're trying to hit their head with a hammer. I got to review this thing over and over and over, and I'm going to force myself to do that. Maybe I remember it for a test. I probably won't remember it later. Okay? But I'll remember this forever. All right. So if you learn, like if you're trying to learn Japanese and you're like, oh, look at that, like that's the kanji for person, and it kind of looks like a person like walking, like the legs or whatever, and anybody could remember that. That's pretty easy. It's a little bit of a story there. And then maybe I have this, like, here's a tree character over here, and look at that. Yeah, it kind of looks like I could imagine that's, kind of a tree with some roots or something like that. And so as I learn these things, because I understand these two things well, I can easily put them together to create this new thing over here. All right. So that's the basic idea. Flashcards by themselves are not good or bad. It's just how you use them. And typically, you should be spending more of your time like sharpening your knife by spending more time with the vocabulary itself to really understand something. If you really understand it, you don't really need much of the flashcards. All right? Yes, and Tom knows what's going on. So you have like Stoki or something like that, like something easy where we're making combinations. But yes, somebody is reminding me. Get my. All right. But let us continue. So hopefully that makes sense. So I use flashcards myself. I can show you. Let me show you some. So I actually have, and my writing is really tiny as usual. So this is actually like a pack of flashcards just to show you that I do actually spend my time learning. But this is what I'm doing basically. And I don't know why I wrote them so tiny. I've got lots of space on the... So don't make flashcards like me. Like my writing is typically small and not very neat. But as an example, this is the kind of thing I'm doing. So I have a flashcard, and then on the back, like it's more of like a story to help me remember the flashcard rather than something else. But this is basically what I'm doing. So personally, as I'm learning, I do use flashcards, but how I'm learning them or how I'm using them is important. All right, here we go. All right, let's see if we can get through these last comments over here. All right. I think, and Ildar, nice to see there, Hedru. Let's learn some English with you this morning. Welcome. To be honest with you, I can understand over 80% even difficult native speakers. That's great. And so understanding is the first step, but you want to understand well enough that you can speak. So if speaking is your goal, that's what you should be doing. All right, Y says, how can I learn vocabulary useful? Well, just pick a few things that you need for your life and focus on them. That's how I would do it. So when I hear things in my life, I think, oh, that's probably some vocabulary I should know. So I spend some time learning it, and then I want to spend more time like reviewing something until I feel confident using it. Let's see. Tom says, listening to and understanding what teacher Drew says is already a test for the TOEFL exam. Yeah, you could think about that way. Again, I'm not an expert on the TOEFL exam. Actually, I have friends who do, but I don't focus on that specifically. Lewis says, blah, blah, blah. I think that expression is universal. It doesn't need translation in English, blah, blah. Portuguese, blah, blah, too. Yeah, you could say something. I think, wasn't there like a Friends? Oh, no, I'm thinking of like a Seinfeld episode that was like yada yada or something like that. Fisherman says, when you say focus in a particular topic, I was thinking feeling hungry and saying, what shall I eat? It's so funny. Blah, blah in Japanese is there exists, blah, blah, blah. I don't know. Actually, maybe Keiko can answer that question because it's a bit more of a... it's kind of like using it in that way. It's like a pretty rude thing to do in Japan. So I've not heard people use that with me. So there might be something like that, but I don't use that personally. And yeah. So maybe Keiko can answer that question. So is there something like a blah blah blah, like someone else is talking to you, but you don't care what they're saying, or it's just like they're saying something, it doesn't mean anything, it's nonsense like that, blah, blah. Everton, work with programming, and I don't type it with my native language. Meanwhile, I use ChatGPT. So yeah, it's okay to use ChatGPT, but like, remember ChatGPT can't speak for you. And ChatGPT will also make mistakes. I catch many mistakes from ChatGPT. And so I have to be careful that I'm not like learning something that's too difficult for me. Like if I never feel very confident with ChatGPT unless it's just some basic things that I'm getting more examples of that I know it's correct. And that's for both English and Japanese. I make a mistake, Tom. I've always done. Lewis, you made a mistake again. Nona says, I have a TOEFL test this week, and I am super nervous. Wish me luck. Well, good luck. I can't really help you prepare for it, but good luck. Focus on whatever you need for the test. Find out what that is and focus on that. And if you need to prepare for a test, like, don't follow my advice here. My advice is for people who really need to speak, and so they have kind of a longer term use of something. But if you have a test today or this week, just go get your flashcards and try to memorize stuff and cram it into your head as fast as possible. So that's what I guess that would be my advice for that, just for taking a test. But if you actually want to speak, you should follow what I'm recommending. Give it a try, see if I'm correct or not. Let's see. Good luck, Nona. Yes. All right, Nona, everyone congratulating Nona over there, saying good luck. All right, thank you, teacher. You have been an amazing teacher all the time. Glad to hear it. Iller says, yesterday I saw the UK sitcom Mind Your Language. Like M-I, it's spelled like that, Mind Your Language. So many funny accents, nice for training, listening in fun mode. Yeah, Drew Sensei with a cat in a box, says Tsubasa. Hello, how are you, teacher? Says Elizabeth, I'm doing well. Tam says, thank you, Drew, for providing such a helpful explanation to the question, the key steps and strategies. Your insight and guidance are greatly appreciated. It's my pleasure. Remember, I want to make this simple for people. So I know, and also like when you get what we call a listicle it's kind of a funny word for like those, like a list of something, like on a blog post, it's like, here are 10 ways to do something like that. If there are actually 10 steps in order to do something, like if I'm trying to build something, there are specific steps. But typically for getting fluent, I really want to make it simple for people. Just understand the language like a native. It's really that simple. So if you have doubts about something, you need to clear up those doubts. You need to answer those doubts or destroy those doubts, and that will help you speak confidently. So that's it. Yes, I had some water already. Let's see here. So always learning a lot here. Glad to hear it. Why so small? Yeah, I don't know why I write so small. I think maybe I started doing that. My writing typically is quite small, though. And so I have to think hard to write on these whiteboards here. In the future, I'd like to have just like a nice studio where I can type something, and then it just appears nice and clean on the screen. So I think I'll do that. I think I've seen people do that, but I don't have that set up now. Let's see. Shito Yasumi. Yeah. Shito Yasumi. Hi, sensei. Says Keiko, nice to see you there. Let's see. Bling, lay one person lean on a tree for rest. Yeah, that's the basic idea. Alexander says, when you give classes here, typically Mondays and Thursdays, Japan time. Not always, but usually this time. Taylor, how I can understand you? Well, I'm being understandable. So I'm being understandable. So I gave the explanation earlier about having different levels of English speaking. So the way people speak in real life, in movies and TV shows, is different than how I'm speaking now. They're using the same language, but they use it in a different way. It's much faster, or there might be uses of vocabulary it's just much more difficult to understand them. So that's why in Fluent for Life, we actually take people through understanding these different kinds of English. So you go from this easier teaching English to the native level. And so you can understand it well and you can use it more confidently in your own conversations. All right, hello, this is Korea. Look at that, Korea representing Hack Wizards over there. Sir, any future plan for buying a smart board? Yeah, like that would be kind of cool. I would need a place to put it though. So that's, since they also use in Chinese. Oh, that's interesting. I'm guessing, I don't know how you pronounce that though. Haha, me, oh my goodness. But sensei in Chinese language means sir. Yeah, I don't know what that would mean exactly. But yes, it's teacher in Japanese. Or I mean, listening and reading is input, then writing and speaking is output, so we need partner for speaking because input and output must be balanced. No. What do you mean they must be balanced? You spend most of your day not speaking. I mean, unless you are a professional speaker or you are a door-to-door salesman or somebody that's actually speaking a long time, like if you're on the phone, like you're doing phone sales or something like that, typically most people are not spending their time speaking. They're getting lots of input. And the thing that allows the output is the input. So if you get more input, you will have more output. But you don't have to try to balance those where I spend 10 minutes reading and 10 minutes trying to speak. That's not the way to get fluent. I should actually spend an hour trying to understand more, and then I could spend 10 minutes speaking really well because I understand the language well. All right? So don't worry about trying to balance out like input and output. Just spend your time really understanding the language. Maybe you do it quickly, maybe it takes a while, but until you remove the doubt, you're going to have trouble speaking. So just remove the doubt. Don't worry about repeating things or looking for a practice partner or something like that. Just eliminate the doubt. All right, Raul says, mind your language. Diana says, I can see the word. Could you write a little down? I can't see the word. Which one? Listicle? Hopefully that's on there. I think that's on the screen. I can see it. And Danielle says, Drew, I'm following your video since 2019. It's been a while, huh? Thanks for everything. I'm glad to hear it. Lodi says, excellent dude. No, sensei no advice is always encouraging. Glad to hear it. Prasanna says, you are very happy mode when you are teaching. I'm very happy to learn with you, sir. Well, yeah, I enjoy teaching. It's fun to help people understand things. All right, Priyanthi says, good morning. How is everything going on? Everything's going well. I can't stop thinking everything in Spanish. What do you recommend to be able to think in English? You have to learn in English. That's the easy answer. So if you're thinking in Spanish, it means you're still learning in Spanish. But if you get one example of how you learn something new in English, you will understand that thing in English and not have to translate anything. So that's why we, like you see, I give maybe a few Japanese examples because I learned Japanese, but I'm not using Spanish or Italian or French or Russian or anything to teach English. I'm teaching English in English and helping you understand English in English. And as you do that, you will stop translating naturally, okay? So don't worry about trying to force the Spanish out of your mind. You should just spend more time getting more input in English. English with a village guy from India. Tsubasa says, how is your workout going? We know you have a kind of home gym. The home gym. Yes, Tsubasa is asking about the gym. The only thing I have for a home gym, I'll draw it for you. This is pretty cool. I got this on Amazon. It is a jiritsushiki, so a freestanding parallel bar. That's it. This is the only piece of gym equipment I have. So this is I can hang from this. This is me, the belly over here. I can hang, or I can raise it or lower it or whatever. But that's the only. I don't do any like weight training really. It's all body, like, what do you call it? Calisthenics. So calisthenics or body weight training. So if I can do pretty much everything. If you have a parallel bar. You can, I'm not a great artist when I'm drawing these pictures. But yes, I can do different. The only problem is I can't do like muscle ups or something because I don't have my roof, like the ceiling in my room is really short. So I have where I put this up, and it's foldable. So I can put it away, and the kids, they sometimes hang on it. So I can put rings on this too. So I use rings sometimes, but I don't. That's all I do for exercise. It works well though. I recommend it. So I mean, you don't need to go to a gym or go to get lots of equipment. Just you already have weight with you. Just use the weight that you have, and then it will naturally build up, and you get kind of heavier, and then you use that weight, continue to do stronger exercises or heavier exercises. But I kind of hurt my left shoulder a month or two ago, and it's starting to get better, but like it was kind of a pain. I was doing what do you call it, like upside down push-ups, like standing, like freestanding push-ups, and I kind of hurt it, I guess. Let's see here. And Diana says, the last, and Ariel says, I have to learn native English speaker. I have to learn native English speaker because I don't understand when they're speaking. The teacher would speak more in their native. Yes. Well, again, if you want to understand natives and speak well, then you have to understand the way natives do. That's how you do it. All right, and then Gian says, hello, teacher. All right, look at that. We made it to the end of the comments. Very good. All right, just a quick recap for the end of this, especially people who joined us late. The basic idea is that you want to understand vocabulary like a native. And often when people are just hearing something, it's a higher level of vocabulary rather than the kind of lower or easier vocabulary understanding that a native would know. So if you can take more time and spend more time understanding the foundation of that vocabulary, then you can use that fluently. And I really want to make it clear that you become fluent in individual words and phrases as you become fluent or as you become confident because you've eliminated the doubt about those things. So you can still talk about some things fluently, but other things you cannot. All right. And so that's like the kind of the reason why is because we actually get fluent in some things as we understand them well, one thing at a time. Okay, so focus on something, become fluent in that thing. So I wanted to call this video like, can you get fluent in one word? But it's basically the same idea of, can we learn something and understand it really well and then start using that fluently? That's the basic idea. All right. All right, make sure I didn't miss any last comments here. Lodi says, what is your opinion? Some people say, so it would be some people say that just by listening to a language, we could get it. They say it isn't necessary to study it. Just by listening, we could get English. Well, as I always say, the point is not to only listen to the language. It's to understand the language. And so if you took a small child, you would want to help them see the language and touch something or taste something. All of those things help you understand. The point is not just to listen to the language. Like I would learn much more slowly, and it would be, I would create a lot more doubt if I only listened. All right. But the point is, I think people are trying to say that you need input, and that's correct. But I want to make it clear what's actually happening. So if you can get enough input that helps you understand something well enough that you feel confident using it, then you will speak. All right. But if you just get kind of surface level, you don't understand something very well, then you're not going to feel very confident speaking. Okay. So spend more time understanding the language really well, and that's the thing that's going to help you speak. All right. So whatever it is you're learning, focus on that, and that will get you the fluency you're looking for. All right. But it's not about just listening; it's about understanding the language really well, so you remove the doubt. All right. Think about that. Like I want people to start spreading this around. So it's not about just listening; it's about removing the doubt. All right. So destroy whatever doubt that stops you from speaking, and that will get you fluent faster. All right, let's see. Ibrahim says, good night, and Lou says, it's like an international class with so many students from all over the world. Yeah, isn't this interesting? So I can be here in one room, and someone can else, other people can be in different rooms. It's amazing, anywhere in the world. So there's never been an easier time to get fluent. It's really, like the opportunity right now is just incredible because the information is all over the place. But the point is there's so much information that people get, they can't focus on a particular thing and really understand it well. So the people who focus are the people who get fluent. And let's see, how many hours or time per day is it recommended to spend listening to English movies or videos in English? Well, whatever you can do. If you can do 5 minutes a day, 10 minutes a day, great. If you can do more, that's great too. But how you use the time is really most important. So how you use the time, if you take 10 minutes and focus on some lessons that really help you understand something like a native, that's a much better use of your time than just watching some random part of a movie. All right. So you want to, again, the point is to eliminate the doubt that stops you from speaking. Don't lose the belly. Yes, we want to, my wife is like my belly manager to make sure it doesn't get too big. So she'll let me know, if I need to lose a little bit of weight. Thank you, Drew. See you. Yes, Lumian all over the world. Bye, minasan, madane. See you. And see you then. All right. Jordy says, how to say complicated things with simple words. You should watch my video about that. I made a whole video about that. How to say like it's basically that idea. But look at my live videos. You will find something like that. Thank you to everyone who has joined me today. I hope you have learned something. If you have, do click the like button and let other people know that they should watch the video too. Oh, now look at it. Of course, everybody has to come right here by the end of it. Let's see. I imagine you hanging on the tree, standing parallel bar with a Stallone face. Yeah. So I mean, the reason I got the parallel bar for the inside of my house is because we have mosquitoes. And so in the summertime when I'm outside, if I'm trying to do exercising on that, I'm getting torn up by mosquitoes. So I wanted to have something nice. I could just relax and do stuff whenever I want to, and I can get up. So today I was up at like 4:30, get like exercise in, and then I can enjoy the rest of my day. Let's see. Danielle says, teacher, I think you're similar to Dave Matthews from Dave Matthews Band. I actually saw him in person one time. I was working actually at a sushi restaurant in Seattle, and he came to the restaurant. And I didn't think I looked like him, but I guess maybe I could see that. Let's see. Hi from Brazil, says Paulo. And Alejandro, what's up from Mexico? And Tom says, doi dajimashite. Keiko-san and Paulo. And look at that. You can use a whole bunch of, look at Tom is just the ultimate polyglot over there. Very good. All right. Well, I'm going to shut it down now. Take your time, focus on something. I promise you will become a fluent speaker faster without having to spend lots of time studying things if you focus on understanding. And you get understanding by getting lots of varied review about a particular topic. All right, hopefully that makes sense. Gion says, I'm new here. I came across your streaming video by YouTube recommendation. I'm enthusiastic about learning English. I'm delighted to be here. Well, we've got lots of videos. We do these lives occasionally, actually, usually like once or twice a week. Oh my goodness, you guys stop commenting. You guys are making this difficult for me. But yes, welcome to the program. It's always nice to see more people with little like emoji hearts and flowers and things like that. All right, thanks. Uses Tom. Chronogo says, Drew, do you plan on making Japanese lessons as a first language? I think there's probably enough Japanese content already. I don't really need to do that. I think if I were to teach Japanese like that, it would probably be just using other content that's already available. The term filial in English, why is not commonly used in everyday conversation, particularly in American English? I don't know, it's like filial piety, like that kind of thing. Nobody would, we just talk about, maybe respecting your parents or something, but people don't respect their parents enough. So that's a bigger issue before we worry about that. But all right, thank you all. Have a fantastic day, and I'll see you in the next video. If you'd like to learn more about actually getting fluent, you can certainly apply these principles by yourself. But if you'd like me to just do it for you so you can get fluent faster, click on the links in the description. You can learn more about Frederick and Fluent for Life. I'll see you back. Bye-bye.